All right, welcome to the Buck Hut Podcast, episode 11. I'm your host, Jacob Trainer, and for this one, we got something kind of deep, dark, and heavy to get into. Something that's very hard for me to write notes on personally. It's one of the hardest things any of us are going to have to deal with in our entire lives, and we're probably going to have to deal with it on multiple occasions. This is the loss of life. So fortunately for me, I haven't had to deal with this too awful much in my life yet. However, the two I've had to deal with have been extremely difficult for me. So I kind of wanted to get into the story of both of those. So the first one was a man named John. John was a baseball coach of mine when I was very young, and he eventually became a family friend of ours. We consistently go out to eat with each other, almost weekly. He was a respectful, kind, intelligent man who always had a handshake or a fist bump waiting for me every time I saw him. I genuinely enjoyed his presence and looked forward to every time our families got together. But John had heart complications. Shortly after the time, we stopped going out this consistently together. And John died on the operating table during one of his surgeries, but fortunately ended up coming back to life. When this happened, John saw the light and presence of the afterlife, and following his recovery from the surgery, spent his time spreading the message of God. So for me, this was the first time I really became connected to God. I quickly began to realize John's purpose in my life. God obviously put John in my life to let me know that there was something waiting for me after I died, which was pretty heavy stuff to deal with for the age that I learned that at. And while that may sound relieving to some people, it's something that it's incredibly hard for me, then and now. It's something I still struggle to think about each and every day. I've become pretty good at identifying people's purposes in my life. The downside in that is I just fear that once I've recognized their purpose, that they're going to leave before I'm ready. So like I said, death has always been something that's been very hard on me, or just hard for me to wrap my head around. The most recent occurrence of this was with my dog Sparky. Sparky was the backbone of our family for 15 years. He was extremely intelligent and the most protective dog that I've ever had the honor of being around. He was in no way perfect, obviously, but I believe that every mistake he made was with good intentions. He knew his role, and I truly admired the way he carried himself. He was a true warrior, loving, trustworthy, but four-legged hell on earth for anyone who didn't belong at our house. Which this made it really hard for me when my family brought home our new dog, Daisy. I just wasn't as excited about her as everyone else was, and I think I made that very obvious to everyone from the get-go. Daisy is a great dog. She's sweet and loving, and extremely energetic, loves all people. She's not the hero that Sparky was to me. And once my parents sold their house, I realized how the roles were playing out. They were going to live on the farm, so they didn't need quite the protection that Sparky gave them. They needed a companion, basically. And I realized that how the roles were changing, and why Daisy came into our life is because this transition in lifestyle. So yeah, Sparky's work was done, and his days were to be spent in retirement on the farm. This was well deserved, but I knew he wouldn't enjoy this for long. Every time I came to visit this past summer, I just dreaded the thought of him no longer being around. We'd come in from fishing or being outside, all day, and I just lay in bed at night and think about him outside and how, this inevitable day was going to be near soon. So yeah, that was really hard on me. But I'm proud to say I took every opportunity I had to give him the attention he deserved, and I couldn't have asked for a better friend. I'm thankful for every front porch conversation and every asshole he sank his teeth into. He helped raise an amazing family and was always there when our worlds were hell. The day he died was and is still the hardest day I've ever experienced in my entire life. But I know he's guarding the gates to paradise. This brings up the importance of knowing your role. So, in two separate conversations I've had this past week, I heard people talk about a point in their life where they felt like there's no point to their existence, basically. The point of me sharing all of this is to remind everyone listening that God put all of us here for a reason. I truly think that most of the time it's for the effect we can have on other people and not so much our personal achievements. So I think that's kind of a selfish way to be thinking. To relate this to the outdoors, I feel that like a lot of the time, and it's mostly people that don't know me too well, I guess, but I get misrepresented as a ruthless, heartless killer, or that killing is fun or easy. And anyone who actually knows me know that I'm not anything like that, or that's not what I'm about. I can think of 3 specific instances very recently where this has happened. So this past spring, I believe I told my dad there was this crappie that I harvested, giant crappie, biggest crappie I've ever gotten. But I told him I just felt bad killing it because it was so beautiful, just a gorgeous looking fish. But it's something I had to do to feed our family. Another time this happened was with the first bobcat I killed this season. I think the reason behind that one was because again, it was just a beautiful, amazing animal, and it was the first one I'd ever got to encounter up close like that. There just wasn't the easiest death. The last one was my 2020 buck. It was like my rebound buck that really got me this big push back into the outdoors, and I broke down in tears after I shot that buck because of all the stuff I had to battle through to get me back to my passion in the outdoors. It just wasn't the easiest kill for me, but once again it was something to feed our family. So I've been really transparent about the fact that killing in all forms is very difficult for me. This doesn't, whether it's a fish or an animal in a trap or a whitetail, every life has a purpose. But I realize that these are things that need to be done in order to keep life sustainable, and sometimes that just requires death. Nature is absolutely beautiful to me, and I'm so appreciative of everything that's part of it. But I'm aware that I'm also a part of nature, so I have to play out my role, even if there's parts of that aren't so fun or suck. I guarantee there were days that Sparky's bones were aching and he didn't feel like going out to run the perimeter of our house, but he did it anyways, so it's the same scenario. So in conclusion, to kind of wrap this up, I just wanted to point out that every life on earth is significant in some way. There's a greater purpose to every situation, as mentioned in the majority of this, like sometimes even in death. Moving forward for me, I've realized that I need to become more accepting and more compassionate towards God's plan and try to find the good in every situation. This past week, it's actually probably the thing that inspired me to talk about this the most, was Dakota Meyer on the Joe Rogan Experience. And that's something he's really an advocate for, is, he sees more good in the world than he does evil, which I think with the way the world has been recently within the past few years. There have been some pretty hard times, and it's really hard to have a positive outlook. And he's just huge at finding the good in every situation possible. So I really respect him for that, and his story is amazing. I would definitely check that out if you haven't seen it yet. So for me, whether that's building a better relationship with Daisy or cherishing my time with others, even when things might not be the best between us, or even having a different outlook on the loss of life, these are some things that I need to get better at. So hopefully some of this info can help you with your life and make you more comfortable with addressing these heavy things that life may present you. Like I said, this is not easy stuff to talk about. It was extremely hard for me to write these notes down, especially the ones about Sparky. Yeah, that was extremely hard for me to do, and I tried talking about it the first time, and I just couldn't get it out. So kind of had to compose myself and try this one a second time. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this one. I appreciate y'all tuning in.